Welcome back to Unleash Success. This is your host, Corey Corpodian. Guys, a quick update on the podcast. We're going to be releasing episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays now. On Mondays, we're still going to do the Mental Mondays to create a mental shift to help you become more successful during the week. Wednesdays, we'll be interviewing people just like we have been for the last 2+ years. You know, people have built million or even billion-dollar businesses. And then on Fridays, a new series that I'm introducing called Everyday Entrepreneurs. This is to break down the secrets of people that are in the dirt. You know, they're working on their strategies of success. They're trying things today to show you what it takes to make $1,000 more a month, or maybe even $10,000 more a month, and leave your day job. If you are interested in building a business, if you want to grow a new business that you just started, I created a free guide. Go to unleashsuccess.com/startup. It's a free guide compiling all the best advice that I got from the last 2 years of interviewing successful entrepreneurs on the podcast. So if you want to start a business or grow your new business, go to unleashsuccess.com/startup, and the link will be in the show notes.
Welcome to the Unleash Success Podcast, where we break down the secrets of success to give you real tools and strategies that get real results. And now, here's your host, Corey Corpodian.
Welcome back to Unleash Success. This is your host, Corey Corpodian. Today we get to interview Mitch Cammidge. Mitch has a simple life mission. He wants to create amazing lives and extraordinary businesses. He's a coach for over 250 different business owners, has spoken on multiple stages, and is creating a global impact by helping other business owners get results. Pretty much, this guy is the man you want to talk to if you're having any trouble in business and you want to learn how to grow it or maximize your profits. Mitch, thanks for coming on the show.
Corey, how you doing, brother? It's a real pleasure to talk with you again, as always. And hey, it surprised me the other day when I looked at the opportunity to come on here real quick and realized that you and I have known each other for 3 years. And that's just extraordinary.
Wow, I actually am surprised it's been 3 years too. It feels like time flies, right?
You got her. So let's dive in. Thanks for the introduction. How can I be of service to your audience today?
You know, I love that about you, man. You're always trying to give value. And I want to start with understanding how you became a business coach. I mean, there's a lot of coaches out there, but few of them have created so much impact as you have, helping over 250 business owners. So how did you become a business coach?
I'm gonna blame my father for this. So this is one of the few times that I talk about kind of that the impetus that started this. I've been involved, of course, Tony Robbins and other organizations like that for years and years and years. And we all start on missions for ourselves. And after a while, we find that we're starting to work with other people, help with other people. So about 9-10 years ago, I had a conversation with my dad, and this sticks with me to now. And he goes, well, Mitch, you've been kind of flirting with this a little bit, and you've been doing some moonlighting, and you worked with a couple of different companies a little bit. If this is what you really want to do, then create a plan. And how many times have any of us ever heard that, right? Create a plan and then stick to it. Follow it through, and you're going to get to where you want to go. So I went, you know what, Dad? For a change in my life, I'm going to listen. Instead of doing what a lot of us are, really stubborn to go, no, I've got this. No, I listen. And so I did. And part of that plan was I went to work, first of all, with Starbucks and with a local retailer here that runs licensed Starbucks stores. Went to work with Starbucks and got some training as a store manager and then as a store partner and as a store leader, store trainer. And then I went to work for another retail giant here, headquarters out of here, but it's all over North America, and I won't talk about that name as well. And I spent 2 years, and I was a trainer for both of these and trained other store managers, ASMs, key leads and officers. And in about 2 years, I ended up training about 200 people, store managers and ASMs and key stakeholders and key holders and stuff like that. That started the impetus to go, I think this is what I want to do. I like working with business owners. I'd like to work on stuff, like to help build systems and train and do ideas. And then I ended up working with a communications consultancy for about a year and was their head of business development. And we were into lead generation and online marketing, lead capture and stuff like that. I finished up that year and I said, you know what, I haven't found my sweet spot yet, but I really like working with business owners. And I keep getting asked, and time and again, I kept seeing cash flow issues and hiring issues and sales and marketing and just operations. And yet I had spent 2 years accumulating all of this training, these resources to couple on top of a nest egg of, neurolinguistic programming and financial training and sales and marketing and all these other elements. And I went, you know what, there's this need, and local. I mean, I'm from, just outside of Edmonton, Alberta here in Canada, and a real need for somebody to work with a business owner on stuff, not on headspace. There's lots of life coaches running around. Like, how many times have we seen a 23-year-old life coach, right? So there's lots of them in the countryside, but not a lot of people were helping business owners just figure out how to get through their day. So I said, you know what, that's going to be my niche. That's going to be the pocket I want to go into. And that was 6 years ago. We come forward to 6 years now, trials and tribulations. I've had the pleasure of being able to work with 258 businesses to today. And a business coach, what I do on a day-to-day basis is work with businesses on stuff, cash flow, financial structure, properly financial planning for your business, organizing their time, not time management in the form of a book and a calendar and stuff like that, but making sure that they're prioritizing working in and on their business, what that real difference is. In your business is lights on, doors open. On your business is planning, directing, growing. And as we get busy, we kind of lose track of that. And so helping business owners, most of my clients are small to medium enterprise, retake back some time so that they can focus on growing it, directing it, planning it, nurturing it, building operational stuff, sales, marketing, how to hire, how to directly plan, how to train their staff, how to build a strategic plan for the first time, understand the brand impact that a company has in a marketplace and what they're recognized for being good for. So a business coach, what I do day to day, and to go back to where I started all those years ago with certain retailers and an accumulation of stuff that at the time I didn't realize was the cornerstone to help people learn how to sell and market and hire and time manage and manage their cash flow and take care of their financials and stuff like that, comes forward to today where I work on cash flow, cash in and cash out, the way money works in a business, organize time, build operational parts, the things and stuff that make businesses run, hiring, firing, care and feeding of the animals, sales and marketing, operations planning, training and maintaining and growing your staff, and then planning strategically and getting a business to go where it needs to do. And so a business coach, what I do day to day is help business owners build stuff first and then get out of their own way and live a really amazing life after. And that's, I guess you could say, the real difference between a business coach, a systems coach, as opposed to a performance or an executive level or a life coach that is really interested in making sure that you feel really good and empowered. I want to build some stuff first so that when you decide that it's time to make a change for yourself, that the structure around you for the thing that you've chosen to do, maybe for the rest of your life, works the way it's supposed to, was meant to, and can give you the resources and the opportunities to achieve something really great in life.
Well, I guess we got to thank your dad, huh?
or you can blame him depending on how you look. Yes, I owe a great deal to my dad for what was a very random conversation, right? The butterfly effect. One conversation led to this almost 10 years later.
It's so interesting how sometimes when we do self-reflection, when we have those deep conversations, we can either brush it off or we can take some action. And so I applaud you for doing that. I wanted to ask too, just obviously your systematic approach is probably just, really, really intriguing to a lot of business owners. Just by the things you list off there, I can tell you're a few legs up on probably your average quote unquote coach. But when you go try and get clients, when you're getting a few clients here and there, you're starting to scale up because there are other people out there that are trying to make an impact, to try and help other businesses. What was your pitch to these businesses? Hey, I'm a business. If you got no experience, you walk up into a business like, hey, I'm a business coach. How did you pitch people to start working with you in those first, 1 to 15 businesses?
It's funny what started early on, and it got some development. I started out alone, and then I got a business partner, and we developed basically an agency, and we had like 8 or 10 employees at one point. And I'm actually back to just being me now. But at the very beginning, it was all about assessment, test, and measure. And I developed, call it my moment of genius. I developed one piece of paper that really looks at the fundamental cornerstones in business, breaks it out to that finance and time and the operations part and the strategic planning part of the business. Had a one-page assessment tool, if you will, that's got those bits and pieces on there. And I've been using that for the last 6 years, where when I sit down and start with, listen, you're running a business, chances are you're experiencing frustrations like this. Let me show you for 5 minutes how business should run or work. This is the way I work with my clients. Let's get you to fill this in. It's going to give you a scorecard. It's going to give you a visual representation of what your business looks like right now. And then we can point to it and say, this is happening for this reason, that's happening for that reason. Here's where you're at right now. Here's where you're constrained or feeling stressed or stretched out. And here's what's going to happen as it starts to improve. As we start to move this, you can actually watch your business take shape, start to narrow down, or let's say come in towards the target, because there's a great big target in the middle of the page.
So you went to business owners and you said, hey, I've got this, assessment. I'd like to just, take a look at what you're doing, show you a few key points where you can improve. And if you want to dive deeper, I offer services for this. Exactly.
And it's one page and it's a visual, which is what's so powerful about it, is that you sit down and the descriptor I have for it is, if you got kids and you take them to a restaurant, they give you a placemat, some crayons. This is the adult version of it. When you're done, you're going to be able to color all over it. It's going to be about your business. You're going to be looking at exactly where it sits right now. And you're also going to visualize what it would look like as things start to tighten up, narrow down, if you started to build the stuff the right way in your business. And so that one page is enormously important, because in about 15 minutes, they have a visual look at what their business is like, where stuff isn't quite working, where it works really, really well. They can take that away with them. And often for a lot of my clients, when I go into meetings, like if I'm meeting with them face to face, I'll see that pinned up somewhere in their office. A lot of my clients have it up on a wall somewhere. They're like, I still remember that first meeting, and they use that as a reference point to go back to. And that's where I started those conversations 6 years ago, is in one piece of paper, we can give you a really good look at where your business is sitting right now and what it would feel like at that point, because how we feel about what our business is doing is enormously important if all of the stuff starts to work well. And that's how those conversations start.
Yeah. So what's on this assessment that really opens people's eyes? Like what are you looking at when you look at assessing businesses and assessing growth and profit?
Now, there's a million flavors under the sun for all the parts that make up a business. But what's great about this is the proto version of this was not all that sophisticated to start with, as you can imagine. It's one sheet of paper and a really good idea. Took some time to develop, but now what it looks like, 4 quadrants, 4 cornerstones in our business: the money component, the time component, the architecture of the things and stuff, and the leadership, the long-range planning. And each one of these components, there's a total of 19 parts in business. So in the money side, there's short-term budgeting, long-term financial planning, cash flow management, your accounting and bookkeeping cycle, and then KPIs, or the dashboard for your business. So there's 5 parts in that quadrant. And you can give a score to each one of those different components and look at the parts that are really most important to where you're sitting at now, but the fundamental parts, like cash flow management, is enormously important to every business. So if that does not have a really good score, there's a red flag. There's an immediate, hey, we know this is here. Well, tell me something I don't know. I don't have any money. Yeah, but now there's going to be underlying symptoms that we can test measure for. And then we can build a really simple process to manage this. And then we can put the tools in place. So just that example with these 4 quadrants, 19 parts broken up to 4 quadrants, you can get really specific in a hurry visually. And then there's core components that every business must have in line. And if there's a red flag or a really bad score in any of those, and I identify them as just 5 things, that is, hey, you must work on this to start with. If you don't, what you're experiencing right now is going to keep getting worse, not better. And these are the 5 areas, and that would be cash flow management and time on your business. So in other words, plan, direct, grow. Business development and marketing, being able to sell and attract clients effectively. And then strategic planning, having that benchmark, that measurement for your business. If those 5 are not rock solid in lockstep, your business is going to suffer, it's going to get hurt, and inevitably it's going to fail, because any business that can sustain and grow long term, out of all 19 parts in 4 areas, those 5 are universal. They are constant standards. The biggest companies in the world have got those on point, and little companies that are successful drive through sales, measure their cash flow more than the financial health, because cash is a better measure for that. take time to focus and grow their business, and have a place to look at where were we, what's watched can be measured and what's measured grows. That's strategic planning, being able to say, we're here now, that's where we're going to, and we can map out how we're going to get there and then use that to drive all the other areas of our business.
Oh, I absolutely love that. And everybody's probably like, all right, let's breathe. That was so much information. It's impressive that you're able to put this on a 1-page map. I actually remember you sending that to me. It's really, really impressive. A great creative way to identify areas you're lacking in and areas you need to improve upon. I was curious, how often do you have your clients, or do you reassess and measure this throughout the year, or is it once a year?
Typically, we'll have a brief refresh, call it quarterly. Mm-hmm. We'll go through and say, where are we at right now, and how do you feel? We'll do a very quick touch, taste, feel, and then depending on the client and how we'll call it how violent business is changing. Like, I had some clients that are growing incredibly rapidly. Like, the past year, my top 5 clients grew by well over 200%, each of them. So that look to make sure we're not missing anything happens more frequently. Usually you'd want to sit down and reassess 6 months or a year, like have a really deep dive. And there's some actual assessments that go along with the 1 page too. So we can do the 1 page. You got the visual tool, and then there's other tools that I use to measure more specifically what's going on, so that we can point and say, here's a number. You're at 60% and we want to be at 75, let's say, for example. Yeah, so we can get simple and we can get more sophisticated. But for most businesses, visually, about every quarter, are we going where we should? How do you feel about what's going on? What do you think for the actual structure? Great 10 or 15-minute exercise to go through. And then for the ones that are changing violently, quite a bit more frequently. Otherwise, 6 months or a year. It's
so important to manage everything, or to measure everything. Because if you don't manage it and you don't measure it, it grows or doesn't grow, and you have no idea what's going on. You can't even identify where the pain points are. So this has been a fantastic breakdown of certain areas of business that you guys focus on. I wanted to know, though, and we know you talked about the 5 main areas that people are locked in on, but what exactly, when you're looking at different businesses, that you work with personally, what levers are you looking to maximize the most in order to get the biggest bang for your buck?
Interesting question. Now, I like that question. There's always risk aversion first. Mm-hmm. Let's be defensive in nature and make sure that we shore up everything that's going on. And then if a business is rapidly growing, not how do we contain, but how do we control so we can focus it? And lastly, what are going to be our goals? So, what is our immediate needs? What is the immediate firefighting immediate needs in the next 90 days? What do we need to get a hold of so that we don't hurt ourselves? How do we keep everything moving? Because we certainly don't want to stop, pause, and you definitely don't want to mess with anything that's working, right? What's working right now, and how do we leave it alone? And then for what's working, how do we just turn the volume up a little bit? What's going to be the simplest mechanism from here now? How do we apply, if sales and marketing is not an issue, if we're able to attract clients, but it's a matter of retention in that, then we want to identify those symptoms and fix that stuff in a hurry. When I talk to businesses, so we do the assessment. If you can't hire effectively or retain employees, that's a big red flag, because employees, once you start adding people to your business, or if you're adding more to your business, that's going to make or break success for your business long term, right? You have really solid talent. Are you able to sell and attract clients effectively, and measuring your cash flow and able to hold on to money? So those 3 kind of symptoms out of the 5 big blocks are the ones that are there. If you have good growth, then we need to put some operational stability into the business. If you don't have good growth, but you think you got good systems, we want to test the systems first, see what kind of stretch they've got, and then be able to push back the other way. So really, are we growing or are we building? There's really only 2 cycles for business. We're either building or growing. People are like, well, there's contraction. No, contraction is a symptom of the marketplace. Businesses that are really, really successful keep pace with a growing economy. But in a down economy, that's where businesses that are built well really shine. Most businesses that get ahead do so when economies are tough. Why? Because most people are trying to be really protective, really defensive. And yet there's a great opportunity to get ahead. So if your systems are built right, then you can push to grow in a challenged economy. If the economy's moving really quickly, you'll know for sure whether the stuff that makes the business run, the operation systems of the people you've got, are able to keep pace with that And then your job is to stay at the front end of that wave, to kind of stay out in front. If you don't, it's your own fault for not keeping pace with an economy that's doing well.
So when people talk to you about businesses, right? I mean, right now the economy is doing in pretty well here in the U.S., and a lot of businesses are benefiting significantly from it. The stock market's higher than it's ever been, and yet people kind of still come up with excuses, right? I mean, they're like, this is what's going on. And then, of course, when it's a down economy, I mean, God, that's always the reason why. How do you stay ahead of the curve and identify those areas of where you're weak, and that, honestly, I know we always want to focus on the good and understand, and I like we said risk aversion early on there, but it making sure that, if for whatever reason your business tanked for 3 months or 6 months, you've got enough to be able to keep going. You can't let what the extenuating circumstances are prevent you from building a business. But I think so many people are really short-sighted, and that's why a lot of businesses don't ever make it past 5 years. Yeah.
You know what? It's our grandparents were really good at this. Before credit became a big thing. I don't know if you remember this. Do you remember your grandmother, your grandfather balancing their checkbook?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. And you always knew how much money you had in, and you had to write you wrote a check for your groceries, and you wrote a check for your utilities.
They had a big fat checkbook, man. I mean, it was always like you had to go through each one.
So you had to go through it, and you knew when payday was, and you tracked your deposits, and you knew when you had your bills coming out, and you knew when your utilities would show up, and you knew how much money you had at any given time to pay. And I mean, we were never any longer sighted then than we are now, but we always knew exactly where we sat for a moment. And that's where the adage came in, hey, for a while, let's make sure, first of all, you got a month worth of money in the bank. And then you got 2 months worth of money in the bank and 3 months worth of money. So I don't just talk about cash flow measurement as the more cash you got, the better you are. But that's where that risk aversion comes in first. If I know I've got enough money in the bank to get by for a month, I'm not going to take more risks to burn that capital off, but now it lends me a certain level of security. If I know that I've got 2 months or 3 months, that allows me to operate comfortably. If I know that I've got 2 months, 3 months, 4 months of cash in the bank, and I also know when my business does the bulk of its business, and when it doesn't, then I'm able to maintain that cash for those rainy days. I mean, all businesses have a cycle of some kind throughout the year. Right. Retail does the bulk of its business, October, November, December. January, February is a ghost town, right? In construction, you have probably 5 to 7 months that are your make it rain months, and 4 to 5 months that are your kind of terrible months where really not an awful lot happens. So those 5 to 7 months where it just rains money, you have to know to hold on for those 3 or 4 or 5 months that aren't so good, especially if you want to maintain all your staff. So that is the very first place we always start. So when people are going, what do you do, and how do you get people to see it? In a great economy, people are like, nah, it's fine, I'll get by. Well, are you spending more money than you need to? The question is always, how much money do you still have at the end of the day? I don't know. I just keep getting paid. well, there's a symptom, right? If you don't know how much money you have, and I actually talked to a business owner once, and he was running this. They did $300 million that year when I'm talking to him. And it was just the beginning of the downturn. This is 5 years ago. So one of the first really big companies I walked in the door to talk with. And, we're going through a question and answer period, and I say, I'm just curious, when you have a problem or a challenge, because you've got, at the time, you had like 800 employees, what do you do, to mitigate risk? Like, how do you deal with problems that show up in production or manufacturing? And he was in industrial manufacturing. And honestly, Corey, he goes, I throw money at it until it goes away. Just stunned. I'm like, do you know how much you throw at a problem? He goes, I don't know. Well, how do you know what you break even? Well, I always have more money.
Sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah. And so that is symptomatic of, I don't know how much money I've got. So in a down economy, I don't know how much money I have. In a hurry. If it's booming and you're chasing it and you don't know, that's a problem and a symptom. Instead of say to a business owner, listen, the very first thing you got to do is know how much money you got right now and what your burn rate or your run rate is. In other words, how much money you're spending to just operate what you're doing right now.
Right.
I hadn't thought about it like that. Well, that's enormously important, because if you don't know how much it costs to operate on a day-to-day basis, we'll go back to grandma and grandpa balancing the checkbook. how are you possibly going to know whether you're saving enough money for, Christmas? Grandma and grandpa always knew how much money they had going into Christmas and how much they spent on presents. They also knew that January, February is going to be really, really quiet, right? And so they relied on their paychecks. But what happens if grandma or grandpa worked in construction? What if they worked wherever it was? Well, you'd need to know that you'd have enough money for January, February, because chances are you weren't getting a paycheck. So that is always the first place to start for people. When it's booming, I don't know how much money I've got. Money just keeps showing up. It's probably a problem.
Do you look at creating a reserve cash flow as that's something you recommend to businesses?
Always.
And what's a recommended 6 months reserves, 3 months reserves? I know it's tough for growing businesses to even contemplate that, but it's like retirement. If you don't start saving early, you're going to regret it later on in life. And so I'm wondering if people should take that same mentality to business.
Absolutely. Now, when you've got a business that's new, just starting out, let's say first 2 years, first 3 years, if you can get a month squirreled away somewhere, good. We want more, right? Businesses that are more established, been around for a while, you want to look at multiple months, or you want to look at as many months as you have down. The numbers I used for construction are really important because where I am, we have a very clear, I'm talking to you and you're from California. So you guys can do business 12 months out of the year in construction, really, depending on where you are. In Alberta, we have some really bitter cold periods. And so that 5 to 7 months is exactly what our construction cycle looks like. We have about 5 months that are just booming. We have about 2 months that are transitional based on weather. And then we have those 4 or 5 months that are kind of left over where it is ghost town. So for a construction-based business, I would advocate having 4 months worth of operating income where it's like your doors are open, lights are on, everybody's working, but you aren't making anything.
So smart. So Mitch, a lot of times I talk about the 80-20 rule, and the way I use it with this is 80% of our results come from 20% of our actions. Mm-hmm. And the key is just knowing which actions to take. And we've talked about so many different things, but I want to kind of throw a curve, and I know it's not necessarily a curve for you. I think you'll appreciate it. But we talked about turning levers. We talked about moving different things that would slowly decrease risk in your business, increase cash flow in your business. But I want to know if I'm year one of my business and I've been making some sales, but I want to take it, and I want to take it not just 200%, 300%. I want to 10x everything that I'm doing. I want to go from 100,000 to 1 million to 2 million. Those typically those plans and strategies typically take a different mindset and actions. What do you see are those things that you can do as a business coach that really get your clients to go from 1 to 2, but 2 to 10?
Yeah, absolutely. I love the question as well. Most of the time as a business coach, you got to understand that there's what I call the 95-5% rule. About 95% of business owners won't work with me because they're probably living under some delusion. And I don't mean because things are good or bad or they think they can get by. If things are a little better, I could probably make it. And if things aren't as bad as they could be, and if I can hold on another month or so, I'll probably be okay. But that 5% is really where my clients tend to come from. And they're either so terribly scared or damaged that it's almost like, well, I can't do any worse. Or they're really successful, and I know really successful people have outside help, mentorship, resources, coaching, etc. Right? So understanding what the position they're coming from changes the context. Most people are in a place where they're risk averse. They don't want to lose any more. So that's where what you would call my bread and butter comes from. Those rare clients that come in that are, and I'm going to say rare because, again, it's a small percentage of people that want to 10x it, Grant Cardone Incorporated, right?
Right.
That is behavior and measurement, which means what is the current behavior, process, or system? Think of it like sales. If I talk to 10 people a week and I want it to be 100% more, does that mean I have to do 100% more work? So I got to talk to 20 people a week? Or what are the people I'm getting the highest response from? So you look at it from a behavior test measure. Where's our highest level of success? And then you start creating more of that behavior, more of that repeat process happening just inside that specific target market. It would be most about business development and marketing. So is our marketing targeted towards specifically our highest level, not whales, right? Not unicorns. But if we look at a tree and the top 20% of branches, not counting the unicorns or whales, that would be, living at the top of a tree. If we could take this imaginary tree with whales and unicorns at the top, what does our top 25% of our market look like? Chances are most of our competitors aren't there because it takes extra time and energy to develop those. But those are the ones that have the biggest opportunity for return, that are going to have the kind of revenue stream that we want first and foremost. And what is our quickest distance to communication methodology? So that changes the impact of your business development marketing strategy to be quite a bit more specific. So instead of calling 100 or 200, 300 companies, you might call 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 companies, and you might take a little more time to nurture those relationships, but your return is of a lot higher value. And so if people want to 10x it, you want to look at where that 20, 25% sweet spot is and go, is it replicatable? Is there enough of them in the marketplace, or do we have to look at different markets to satisfy the kind of growth that we want? And then what is the behavior? The Sandler sales system in the world always talks about behavior and behavior boards, measuring success. Success comes to math. If I talk to 10 people and I sell to 2 every time, and those 2 sales are $1,000, so I make $2,000, but I need those sales to be $5,000, then what does the $5,000 client look like? Do I only need 2 of those $5,000 sales to make $10,000 in a month? Then it behooves me to create my prospect list out of 10 companies, if I'm going to get 2 out of every 10 that are going to give me those $5,000 sales. Well, now I've gone from $2,000 in sales to $10,000 in sales with the same amount of effort. That is how this measures out when you want to 10x or go 200% or 500% or 1,000% growth. That what is the specific, what is our ideal target, what does that marketplace look like, what is the repeated behavior, and what is sustainable? In other words, is it reasonable to make 200 phone calls in a week? Well, if you're making 200 phone calls in a week, I don't think, personally, that you're specific enough with the audience that you want. But if you got 35 or 40 phone calls to make in a week because your prospect pool is only 35 or 40, if those are exactly what you need, you're going to continue to wash, rinse, or repeat off that. That is behavior that can be followed up, consistent, and maintained months, years at a time. And if that's going to give you that $10,000 a month instead of $2,000 a month, or $100,000 instead of $10,000, or $1 million instead of $100,000, then your business has the opportunity to 10x itself, to grow by 200 or 500 or 1,000 or 10,000%, because you're focused on what the outcome and the measurable is, and the behavior leads to the measurable. If I do X amount of effort with Y amount of prospects, Z's going to be the outcome. So I got to measure dollars, I got to measure buy, I got to measure repeated buys, and then, of course, where most businesses miss, if you really want to grow, what is my follow-up, referral, and repeated business buy rate like? What else can I sell to people to increase the dollars that I need? Because otherwise we're missing free money. And that's how you grow rapidly, by being really specific on identifying first what it is that you need to go after, and then making sure your behavior is always focused on that highest order of return. In other words, those clients that are going to give you exactly what you want and need from a result, as opposed to just, let's say, everybody.
Yeah, I love that. It's so true. The amount of effort you get to get $1,000 client versus a $10,000 client, it's going to be a similar amount in certain regards. And so to be able to maximize it, you want to make sure you're spending your time in worthwhile pursuits. And then the other thing too, just the way you said it, which I love that we kind of jumped into that right here at the end, is maximizing your profits by going to people that have already bought something from you. And that doesn't matter whatever business you're in, whether it's online information business, whether it's a retail store, whether you're a realtor, or you're selling something online through Shopify. But that idea of an upsell or a downsell or even a cross sell, because these are people that A, already trust you, and B, have already bought something from you. So that in itself means that they're more likely to, as long as you gave them a good product, they're more likely to purchase something from you again. So
let me answer that thought real quick from the business coach, right? Yeah. This is not just bull that is coming out of my head or that I read in a book or whatever it is. I'm living this every day. The proof is empirical in my business. My biggest client right now, and they've had a banner year. Again, one of the 5 companies that they did like 260% growth last year. So it was phenomenal to watch. They referred what is now my second biggest client from them to go to my second biggest client. So a first generation referral. That second biggest client, which is an accounting firm. I am 9 generations deep with referrals. So what does that say about my business development cycle when I don't have to have a sales call anymore? Because people that are, for a business coach, already drinking the Kool-Aid, I'll use that term, right? already stewing in the pool that is my business. Continue to refer, and because of the nature of the authority of the position that they have, in other words, an accounting firm, how well would you take it if your accountant called you and said, listen, I know you're struggling, you need something to happen. In fact, we're using this business coach right now, and sure as hell, you had better use him too, because I see your numbers and you need help, right? How much more authority do you need than that when your accountant calls you and says, so if you don't do something, you're screwed. And by the way, I've got a solution. Corey, I'm living that on a day-to-day basis, because the smarter we work, not the harder we work, the more the results come.
That's a golden referral right there. That's for sure.
Yeah. I haven't had to do a sales call in 6 months. Not that I won't, but if you build it the right way, it perpetuates itself. And so your behavior is smarter, not harder. Less interactions, more development, more growth. The business grows the right way. But if you don't put that in place and understand what that looks like at the beginning, you can't get your business to where it creates its own business.
Absolutely. I love that. Mitch, you've gone through so much information here. I absolutely love it. But if there's one takeaway, if there's one thing that, entrepreneurs should be doing today, what do you think it is?
There's 4.
Oh, okay. I knew you'd give me more than one.
Measure your cash more than anything else. I don't care what your accountant or bookkeeper says. Measure your cash. Make sure that anybody else you add to your team, proximity, mentorship, employees, make sure they fit and they're willing to come on the same mission you're on. Learn to sell far better than you do now. I don't care who you are. You can always learn to sell better and market better. Invest in education when it comes to that specifically. And lastly, get out of your own way. More often than not, we're in our own way. We're in our own headspace. We're screwed up because of it. Get out of your own way. Accept outside help. Find people to butt up against. Find other people to share ideas, take suggestions from, and smash it. Because the old you is going to cause more problems than the new you needs, and you have to get rid of it. You got to kill those monsters in your head, and you need outside help to do it. Get out of your own way, and for the love of God, measure your cash flow and sell like crazy.
Excellently said. I really appreciate that. Mitch, where can everybody find you online if they want to connect with you?
You know what? For the longest time, it was surprisingly only Facebook. But you can find me at mitchcammidge.com, or you can find me at facebook.com/Mitch Cammidge Official. I live in the social media sphere. I got a wonderful little following on my YouTube channel, a bunch of other places too. But Facebook is always a great place to get a hold of me because I spend a lot of time interacting with people there. It's a wonderful place to get a sense and a feel of what's going on in my business. They can find me on my website, Facebook, YouTube. Again, Mitch Cammidge, and you're going to find me there.
Great, man. I can't thank you enough for dropping so much value. I mean, people are going to have to listen to this episode 2, 3, 4, even 5 times just to gather all the information and all the wisdom you've said in this episode. So thank you for that. Appreciate you sharing your strategies for success. And I want to ask you, what is your next level of success?
You know what? I'm starting to live it already. 2019 was transformational. I spent a lot more time talking in front of groups of people. I've launched a number of secondary organizations centered around my business so that I can help to develop and grow relationships, networking groups and women entrepreneur groups and other organizations to really help businesses foster and gather. And I've partnered up with some absolutely wonderful people. And I spend more time traveling and talking to people and really sharing as much information. And 2020 should be really exciting. There's some great development kind of stuff there. And it continues to build the opportunity for me to just educate people. And that's what growth is for me. The more people I educate, the more people I help. Funny enough, the bigger my business gets.
That's awesome. Mitch, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Brother, it's been an absolute pleasure.
If you enjoyed the show and learned something of value, the one ask that I have is please go subscribe, whether you're on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. And if you leave us a 5-star rating or review, that absolutely helps us get our message out there. Each week, I'm going to continue to interview amazing people, and we're going to break down their tools and strategies to help get you real results. Feel free to visit the website, unleashsuccess.com, and subscribe to our newsletter so you get updates each week. And remember, knowing is not enough. Knowledge alone is not power. action is. Because action is the only way you're going to get the results you want in life and truly live the life of your dreams. So take some action, subscribe to the podcast today, and get ready to unleash success in you.